Angelica Hello and welcome to episode 85 of Spurbs Herbs. Today we are going to be discussing bàng, also known as Arctii Fructus or great burdock fruit. So without further ado, let's get into it. Today we're going to be looking at another single Chinese herb, and as we mentioned, that's bàng, Arctii Fructus or great burdock fruit. This herb is in the Chinese medical subcategory of cool acrid herbs that release the exterior under the category of release the exterior herbs. It is helpful for certain types of colds, sore throats, and as a seed can help constipation. And as always, we will be looking at something a little different. We're going to take a brief look at some basic botany. Please stay tuned for this intriguing episode. Before we get into it, I just want to remind everybody that I've been teaching for quite a while now on a wide variety of topics. If you like this podcast, want to explore more of my courses, they are available at www.integrativemedicinecouncil.org. That's integrativemedicinecouncil.org, and include a ton of different topics, including my drug herb series, looking at drugs and how they interact with herbs and vice versa, several ethics and safety courses, Chinese medical research, several treatment of condition courses such as arthritis, neck and back pain, COVID, and depression and anxiety. One of my favorite courses, the Chinese Herbal First Aid Kit. Can't recommend that one highly enough. And they're all at a reasonable cost, and you can get an additional 20% off with the code SH20OFF. That's SH for Spurbs Herbs, so SH20OFF, OFF, all lowercase. So, I feel like I never got a good knowledge of plants from my herbal studies. I mean, I learned some. I remember in high school biology, I learned something about plants. But, even though my undergraduate was biology, we did more about microorganisms and humans than we did about plants. So I didn't do a lot of that in my undergraduate biology degree. So we deal with herbs, and you would think we would spend some time going with some basic botany, and never really did. So I wanted to cover the basics of botany and plant biology. So we're going to do that now. So plants are multicellular eukaryotes. So multicellular means many cells. Eukaryotes mean they actually have nuclei. Eu means true, karyote means organism that carries a nucleus. So it's a true organism carrying a nucleus, as opposed to prokaryotes that do not have nuclei. So they do have nuclei. At its most base, in nuclei of the cells are what we're talking about there. At its most basic, vascular plants are composed of two different organ systems, the shoot system and the root system. The shoot system involves the non-reproductive or vegetative parts of the plant and the reproductive parts. Non-reproductive parts of the plant include leaves and stems. Reproductive parts include flowers and fruits. The root system absorbs water and minerals, supports the plant, and is usually underground. There are two general types of tissue systems, meristematic and permanent or non-meristematic tissues. Meristematic tissues are found in meristems, which are regions of the plant where there is continuous cell division and growth. Permanent tissue are where plant cells are no longer actively dividing or growing. There are three types of meristematic tissues. These are the growing types. Apical meristems are located at the tips of stems and roots and allow the plant to extend its length. Lateral meristems allow growth in thickness. Intercalary meristems are located only in monocots, basically grasses, and are located at the base of leaf blades and nodes where leaves attach to a stem and allow length increase from the leaf base. Basically, meristems are similar to human stem cells in that they differentiate into different plant tissues. There are three types of tissues meristems can differentiate into and then become permanent tissue. Dermal tissue protects and covers the plant. Vascular tissue is used to transport water and other important constituents such as minerals and sugars to various parts of the plant. Ground tissue is used for several purposes, including as a site for photosynthesis, storing sugars and water, and supporting vascular tissue. Vascular tissue helps make up two different conducting systems. Xylem transports water and nutrients from the roots to other parts of the plants. Phloem transports sugars and organic compounds from the sites of photosynthesis to other parts of the plant. I often think of them as kind of similar to veins and arteries in humans. You know, one goes out from the heart and one goes towards the heart. It's a little stat. Stems are part of the shoot system and usually grow above ground. They can be soft or herbaceous or woody. Soft, also known as herbaceous or woody. So they can be soft or woody or, yeah. They provide support to the plant, hold leaves, flowers, and buds, transports various nutrients and compounds, as well as store food for the plant. Stems have nodes, where leaves, flowers, and aerial roots attach, and internodes, which are between these nodes. The stalks that attach to these nodes at one end and a leaf at the other are called petioles. An axillary bud can be where a branch or flower rises and is located on the axil, which is between the base of a leaf and the stem. For those of you that are observing, I have a picture of these, but we're moving on. There are two main types of root systems. Dicots have a taproot system, where monocots have a fibrous root system. Taproot systems have a main root that grows down vertically with many smaller lateral roots. They can penetrate deep into the soil. Fibrous root systems are closer to the soil surface and form a dense network of roots. These can help prevent soil erosion. Some plants can have both tap and fibrous roots. In general, plants growing in drier regions have deep root systems and vice versa. So those in wetter regions will have more of the fibrous roots systems. Leaves are where photosynthesis, how plants make food from carbon dioxide, CO2, and light, occurs. They're usually green due to the presence of chlorophyll in the leaf cells. From the petiole, remember that's the leaf stem kind of, which is between the node and the leaf, which may or may not be present, the leaf blade is called the lamina. If there is no petiole and the leaf is directly attached to the stem, it is called the sessile leaf. Most leaves have a midrib, which travels the entire length of the leaf up to its tip and has branches of veins that extend to the edges of the leaf, which is called the margin. Leaves can have different arrangements and forms. The arrangement of leaves on a stem is called phyllotaxy, and there are three main types. An alternate leaf pattern is only one leaf per node, which will alternate on each side of the stem in a flat plane. So one of them will be on the left, the next one will be on the right, the next one on the left. It goes back and forth. A spiral pattern is where the leaves are arrayed spirally along the stem. An opposite leaf pattern is where two leaves start from the same node and are opposite to each other. So instead of the alternate leaf pattern where it's one on the left, one on the right, one on the left, one on the right, this one is they're both left, right, both left, right, both left, right. And if there are three or more leaves connected to a node, it is called a whorled pattern, W-H-O-R-L-E-D pattern. There are two basic forms of leaves. Simple leaves are where the blade of the leaf is undivided, or when there are lobes, but the separation does not reach the midrib. Remember, we said the midrib is going down the middle of the leaf. A compound leaf is where the blade is completely divided, forming leaflets, and each leaflet may have their own stalk, but is attached to the rachis or main axis. And there are several types of compound leaves. A palmately compound leaf has leaflets radiating out from one point. Pinnately compound leaves have a feather-like appearance where the leaflets are arranged along the midrib. Doubly compound leaves are where the leaflets branch from the veins. kind of need to see pictures of these, and I do have those, but that doesn't help in a podcast. All right, so with that introduction to botany, let's get into today's herb, Neobangza, or Arctii Fructus. This is in the family Asteraceae. Again, we've looked at this family. We've had several herbs in the family of Asteraceae, so we'll look at that again as a family in just a little bit. Standard species is Arctium lappa, Lappa, and Arctii. We said Arctii Fructus, and now we're saying Arctium. Arctii is plural, and Arctium is singular, so it's the same. Just one's plural, one's singular. So Arctium lappa, L. So again, L refers to Linnaeus, which was kind of the first botanist, biologist that started classifying everything, leaves and animals, into species. And he's the one who came up with binomial nomenclature, which is what we use. That's the Arctium lappa is called binomial nomenclature. So he decided that. So that's where the L comes from, refers to the botanist who first classified this. This is classified early. Medicinal part of this is the fruit or seed. You see that in different places, like Arctii Fructus means fruit, so they're referring to it as the fruit. On the other hand, the seed is considered part of the fruit as well, and these are very seedy. The fruit is a seed, so those are basically synonyms in this case, fruit and seed. The English translation of Neobangza is cattle burdock. So that's where we said this is also known as great burdock seed. So that's where it comes from, cattle. We're going to see why it may have cattle in just a minute. Instead. So their names for this are bardana, beggar's buttons, burr seed, clot burr, cockle buttons, cockle burr, fox's clote, great burr, happy major, hardock, hare burr, lappa. That's hare as in H-A-R-E as in a bunny. So hare burr, lappa, love leaves, personata, philanthropium. I love that word, philanthropium. Thorny burr, dalidza, which is great power seed. Guanlidza, which is Manchurian power seed. Jalidza, Zhejiang power seed, considered the best quality. Usher, Laomuju Erduo. That's a long Chinese name there. Lao Shu Pa, Nian Sangzi, Niu Dali, Niuzi, Shu Nianzi, Su Nianzi, and in Japanese, Goboshi, and in Korean, Yubangja. Again, I don't know how to pronounce Japanese or Korean, so please forgive my pronunciations, and of the Chinese too. Bensky, one of our main texts for individual herbs, discusses several names of this herb. As a very broadly distributed plant, its leaves and root were common fodder for cattle, and it was thus known as cattle vegetable Neosai, or cattle burdock Neobang. Zi means seeds. That's where we see this. So, because cattle are strong, its seeds became known as great power seeds, or dalidze. Seed pods are prickly and tend to stick annoyingly to clothing and even to rat's fur. Thus, noxious fruit, sure, and rat-adhering seed, shu nianze, are other nicknames that are quite common in ancient texts, especially the latter. So, interesting discussion on the different names. Let's talk about the Asteraceae family. So, according to Britannica, the Asteraceae family, also called Compositae, is commonly known as the aster, daisy, or composite family of the flowering plant order Asterales. It includes more than 1,620 genera and 23,600 species of herbs, shrubs, and trees distributed throughout the world, and is one of the largest plant families in existence. There are many well-known plants in this family, including many garden ornamentals, weeds, including dandelion, ragweed, and thistle, food crops such as lettuce, artichoke, safflower, sunflower, and endive. And we discussed as we discussed in episode 9, Artemisia or wormwood, and in episode 51, Sangertsau or xanthium are all part of this family. Members of the family have flower heads composed of many small flowers called florets. They are surrounded by bracts or leaf-like structures. Bell-shaped disc florets form the center of each head. Strap-shaped ray florets extend out like petals from the center and are sometimes reflexed or bent back. Another interesting article agreed with this overview and looked at how this family plays a role in human health, including antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and antimicrobial activity, as well as diuretic and wound healing properties of the family. So that's interesting. We don't usually see that in families. So that's a good overview of the family. Let's talk about some more about this herb. So Bensky and his team say the dosage is 16 to 12 grams. Chen, which is another one of our three major textbooks, say 3 to 10 grams with a maximum of 30 grams. And Brown and Wiseman, our third of our three major textbooks, also say the dose is 3 to 10 grams. So they're similar. So, Bensky says 6 to 12, so maybe a little bit higher dose, while both Chen and Brown and Wiseman both say the dose is 3 to 10 grams. But it can go up to 30 according to Chen. Category. Bensky and his team put this herb in the cool acrid herbs that release the exterior subcategory under herbs that release the exterior. Chen say it is in the wind heat releasing herbs subcategory under the exterior releasing herbs category. So similar, same thing. Instead of saying this is a cool acrid herb that releases the exterior, Chen says it releases wind heat. It's more on, so Bensky is more on the actions of the herb, and Chen is more on, is on the inherent, Bensky is more on the inherent properties of the herb, while Chen is more on the actions of the herb, so wind heat releasing, as opposed to cool acrid. And Brand Wiseman say it is a cool acrid, exterior resolving medicinal under the exterior resolving medicinals category. All three of our sources, this is very unusual that all three completely agree. All three of our sources say it is acrid, bitter, and cold, and enters the lung and stomach channels. There's no discrepancies, and no one said anything different. So that's very rare. Historically, both, again, agreement, Bensky and Chen agree on the original source for this herb, which is the miscellaneous records of famous physicians, or the Mingyi Zaju, or also known as the Mingyi Bielu, by Dao Hongjing, circa 500 CE. So pretty old, not as old as if it were from the Shedong Ben Jing, which a lot of our herbs are, but pretty old just the same. So let's get into what the categories are. So we have now discussed this category and subcategory of herbs several times during our adventures examining Chinese herbs, and we'll repeat that information here just for the sake of completeness. So I apologize if you've heard this before. It's only a few minutes. According to Bensky and his team, exterior releasing herbs are those that release disorders lodged in the very superficial levels of the body. When external pathogenic factors, including wind heat, wind cold, wind dampness, and summer heat, invade the body, they first attack its superficial exterior aspects. Symptoms associated with the exterior then appear: chills, fever, headache, stiff neck, and general muscle aches. Sometimes sweating will appear, which resolves the condition, in which case no treatment is necessary. At other times, however, there will be an absence of sweating, or even though there is sweating, it is not accompanied by any change in the condition. At this juncture, herbs that release the exterior are used. Most exterior releasing herbs are diaphoretics, that is, they release or expel the external pathogenic influences through sweating. There's a saying in Chinese medicine: when the disease is in the skin, sweating will bring it out. When a disease progresses slightly further into the body, it is said to lodge in the muscle layer. The clinical presentation then includes fever, general body aches, and profuse sweating. At this stage, especially when the patient has sweated without any beneficial change in their condition, it is appropriate to use the subset of herbs that release the muscle layer. The most prominent member of this group is Cinnamomum ramulus or Guizhi. Some of the herbs that release the exterior have additional functions: stopping coughs and wheezing, controlling pain or spasms, and venting rashes such as measles. So that was the herbs that release the exterior. This is in the subcategory of cool acrid herbs that release the exterior. So Bensky continues to discuss this subcategory of herbs, and says, cool, acrid herbs are used in treating wind heat patterns with such symptoms as relatively severe fever with mild chills and sore throat. Some of these substances are also effective in venting rashes or treating eye problems due to wind heat. Okay, so that was an overview of the category. Let's get back to the herb. What is good quality of this herb? So Bensky and his team say good quality consists of large and full grains with a grayish-brown outer surface. Chinese medicinal identification and illustrated approach, which is about quality of herbs, says Neobangsa has a long inverted egg shape, slightly flat, slightly curved. Externally grayish brown with purplish black spots. It has a relatively hard and oily skin with a faint odor and a bitter taste with a slightly acrid aftertaste and a slightly numbing effect to the tongue. Superior quality is large, full pieces with an obvious pattern of spots and a grayish-brown color. What are its Chinese medical actions? According to Bensky and his team, Neobangsa disperses wind heat and benefits the throat for externally contracted wind heat patterns with such symptoms as fever, cough, and a sore red swollen throat. It resolves toxicity and vents rashes for red swellings, carbuncles, erythemas, mumps, and acute febrile maculopapular rashes, including the early stages of measles or when there is incomplete expression of the rash. Also used for pruritic rashes due to wind heat. So pruritic means itchy rashes due to wind heat. And finally, it moistens the intestines, as seeds do in Chinese medicine. It moistens the intestines for externally contracted toxins with such symptoms as sore throat, erythema, and maculopapular rashes, but where there's also internal heat causing constipation. Also used for constipation that occurs with other forms of toxicity, such as acne. So that was Bensky and his team. Chen and Chen say it dispels wind and clears heat, eliminates toxins and vents rashes, and finally it clears heat and eliminates toxins from the throat. Brad and Wiseman say it disperses wind heat and disinhibits the throat, outthrusts papules, and resolves toxin and disperses swelling. Our text, Chinese Medicinal Identification and Illustrated Approach, also has functions for this and say it disperses wind heat, diffuses the lung and outthrusts rashes, resolves toxin, and benefits the throat. So again, we're getting some throat stuff in here as well. Okay, that was an overview of its actions. How do we prepare this herb? So all three of our main texts say this herb should be crushed before decocting to kind of open it up. Bensky and his team has a discussion of two special preparations. The first of these is dry fried arctium or chow neobangsa. Fry until popping and yellow. It has an appetizing aroma that emerges upon grinding. Drying tends to somewhat reduce its cold, slippery properties so that it does not injure the middle burner yang qi, for example, in elderly or weaker patients. Processed arctium, why is this not going? There we go. Zhi neobangsa or cooked arctium, shu neobangsa. Both names are commonly used when this herb is fried or steamed with wine. The process borrows the rising action of the wine. Encountering the sources of the Classica Materia Medica or the Benjing Feng Yuan, written in 1670, observes wine frying raises it, enabling it to roam all 12 channels, expel wind from the skin, and eliminate toxic rashes. So those are our two forms of preparation. So we have dry frying and we have basically processed or cooked arctium with wine are going to be the way to do it. Of course, traditionally, more often than not, it's decocted. And if we are decocting it, we definitely want to have it crushed so that all the good stuff comes out of the seeds. Western uses of this herb. So the PDR for Herbal Medicines says this herb is used for ailments and complaints of the gastrointestinal tract as a diaphoretic, which means something that induces sweat, and a diuretic, something that induces urination, and for blood purifying. That's interesting, blood purifying. Externally, they are used for ichthyosis, which is a condition. Osis is a condition. Ichthyi means a condition of fish. It's a fish scales. It's a skin condition that is like fish scales is basically what it is. So ichthyosis, psoriasis, and seborrhea of the scalp. Similarly, WebMD says people use Burdock for aging skin, stomach problems, joint swelling, and many other conditions, but there's no good scientific evidence to support its use. So that's from WebMD, which I consider to be a bit on the conservative side of these things. So it's interesting if you look at this. So blood purifying is an interesting use that has nothing to do with Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine does not say it's diuretic, which believe me, it does have herbs that are doing that. And both of these say it's good for stomach problems, where if you look at Chinese medicine, it really says it's only good for constipation. So it wouldn't be general GI or stomach issues. It would be specifically constipation. So interesting, some of the differences of uses there between Western traditional uses, Western uses, and Chinese uses of this herb. So Neobangsa commentary. So as usual, Bensky and his team has an excellent and extensive commentary on this herb. And here we go. Entering the lungs and stomach channels, Neobangsa clears and drains, in addition to its ability to vent and disperse. For this reason, it not only disperses wind heat, but also clears and drains heat toxin. It is ideal for externally contracted wind heat, hot phlegm coughs, unexpressed rashes, swelling and pain of the throat, and other toxic swellings and sores. Transforming the significance of medicinal substances, the Yao Ping Hua Yi, written in 1644, elaborates. Arctii Fructus Neobangsa can raise the qi or direct it downward and powerfully resolve toxic heat. Its flavor is bitter, so it clears fire, but also acrid, so it dredges wind. Its main area of treatment is wind phlegm in the upper body, swelling of the face and eyes, difficulty swallowing, and all accumulations of toxic heat. Whenever the lung channel has constrained fire, or there is wind heat in the lung channel, this herb should be used. The special characteristics of this herb are that it vents, brings out, clears, and drains, not only dispersing wind heat, but also clearing and draining constrained fire and heat toxin. Note that Neobangsa is slippery, enabling it to promote the movement of both stool and urine. It is thus especially indicated where there is constipation and scanty or difficult urination. So there you go, there's the diuresis. Seeking accuracy in the Materia Medica, the Bensao Qiuzhen, written in 1773, discusses an overlooked aspect of this herb. Nowadays, people only talk about its toxicity-resolving effects and use it whenever they encounter symptoms such as sores, swelling, pox, or rashes. However, this still misses the point about the herb, which is its ability to release both the exterior and the interior. Whenever people have clumped toxic qi, its most common cause is externally contracted when cold. This impairs the flow of nutritive qi and becomes blocked within the flesh, which engenders toxic abscesses. Neobangsa is acrid as well as bitter, so it can direct qi to move downward and likewise disperse wind and expel heat. But because its nature is cold and slippery, excessive use or high dosage will damage the middle qi, which in turn will make the exterior more deficient. It is particularly forbidden in cases of spleen deficiency with diarrhea. There you go. That's some good commentary there. Okay. Comparisons. So Bensky and his team compares this herb with one of my favorite herbs, Menthe haplocalicis herba, or boha. Both herbs spread and disperse wind heat and are frequently combined for this very purpose. Individually, Menthe haplocalicis herba boha is acrid, cool, and induces sweating. It is especially good for dispersing heat in the face and eyes and treating sores and rashes on the skin. It also regulates the qi, relieves constraint, and breaks up turbid filth by the effect of its aroma. By contrast, Neobangsa is bitter, draining, and slippery, vents wind heat out through the exterior rather than inducing sweating, and is notably beneficial for the throat. It is also cooling and resolves toxicity, disseminates the lung qi to stop coughs and transform phlegm, vents skin rashes, and facilitates bowel movements. So there you go. Those are the two herbs they compare. They also talk about combinations with 3 other herbs. The first of these herbs is with Glycyrrhizae radix or gansao, which is licorice. Neobangsa is acrid, bitter, and cool. It can raise the qi or direct it downward, disperse wind heat, resolve toxins, and benefit the throat. Glycyrrhizae radix or gansao, in its unprepared form, has a strong fire-draining toxicity resolving effect. So Neobangsa, assisted by Glycyrrhizae radix or gansao, has a much stronger action in clearing the throat and lungs. Because Neobangsa is cold and slippery by nature, overconsumption can injure the middle burner qi and cause diarrhea due to spleen qi deficiency. However, Glycyrrhizae radix gansao can prevent this by its sweet moderating action. In other words, it assists the action of Neobangsa while moderating its undesirable effects. Clinically, this combination is best for swollen sore throat from lung channel wind heat or constrained fire leading to heat toxin flushing upwards. So not bad there. So that's one combination with licorice. The other combination is with Forsythia fructus or lian chow. This is a common heat toxin herb in Chinese medicine. So Forsythia fructus lian chow is very good for cooling heat and resolving toxicity. It can also disperse clumps and dissolve abscesses. Zhang Shi Chun notes that Forsythia fructus lian chow is full of power to ascend and raise, disseminate, and disperse. It unblocks the flow of qi and blood, treating any stagnation of qi and blood in the 12 channels. For these reasons, it is a key herb in the treatment of sores. Together with Neobangsa, the pair focuses on unblocking and draining heat toxin, dispersing clumps and swellings, and is ideal for treating sore, swollen throats, swellings like mumps, and all types of boils or other lesions from internal preponderance of heat toxin. Because of the slippery nature of Neobangsa, patients may experience loose stools when taking this herb. However, this will actually facilitate the elimination of the heat toxin, and is only a concern if they are constitutionally spleen deficient. In that case, it should be dry fried. There you go. And our third combination is with Dioscorea rhizoma or shan yao. Dioscorea rhizoma, shan yao, and Neobangsa would seem to be an illogical combination for treating cough, but the famous early 20th century physician Zhang Shi Chun frequently used this pair of herbs for cough and dyspnea in at least 7 different formulas for yin deficiency affecting the lungs. Here is his rationale. Dioscorea rhizoma shan yao tonifies both the kidneys and the lungs while also possessing a contracting, conserving power. Its effect in the treatment of dyspnea, which is trouble breathing, so its effect in the treatment of dyspnea is truly grand. Neobangsa is also able to clear phlegm and bring down rebellious qi, and by making the rebellious qi turn around and move downward, it can lead the actions of the other herbs rapidly downward as well. Unless the patient was constipated, Zhang commonly used dry-fried Arctii Fructus, chow, Neobangsa. That was our 3 combinations, interesting combinations. I wouldn't think of Shayao with this. Contents of this herb. So according to Bensky et al., the contents of this herb include phenylpropane derivates, bithiophenes, sesquiterpenes, triterpenes, aliphatic alkanines, organic acids, and polysaccharides. Chen highlights some specific chemicals like arctein, arctigenin, isoarctigenin, essential oil 25 to 30%, gobosterin, lapaol, A, B, C, D, E, and H. E, F, and H, no G. So that's an interesting stuff there. Now we're going to talk about arctein and arctiginin right now. Pharmacognosy, fundamentals, applications, and strategies. This is that, we haven't talked about it. Badal, Mekriath, and Clement wrote this, brand new, came out this year. Discusses the dibenzylbutane lignins, arctiginin and actinin in Neobongsa. Arctiginin has shown in vitro and in vivo activity. So that means in vitro means in glass, and in vivo means in life. So in experiment and in animals at least, maybe humans. So arctiginin has shown an in vitro and in vivo activity against cancer cell lines, including glioblastoma, breast, colorectal, prostate, and gallbladder cancers. So that's very interesting. Arctein is an antidepressant, inhibits osteoclastogenesis. So this means the osteoclasts build bone. So this inhibits the generation of osteoclasts. Osteoclasts break down bones. So it inhibits that. So it inhibits breakdown of bones. And prevents replication of the avian influenza H9N2 virus. So those are pretty good stuff. And again, whenever you see something like arctiginin, Arctii and arctein, this is from Arctii Fructus, Arctii lapa. So that basically means these are found in this first and probably fairly exclusive in this particular herb, these two particular chemicals. So very interesting in that context as well. Let's talk about the science. So according to Chen and Chen, the pharmacological effects of Neobongsa include the following actions: antibiotic, anti-diabetic, anti-inflammatory, antipyretic, which means it reduces fever, diuretic, so it induces urination, and helping the kidneys. They also discussed 2 clinical studies, one with an N of 40. So remember, N's mean how many subjects there are. And we generally are we want at least 30 to 40 subjects, because then we can apply population statistics to the study. So at least 30 to 40, but as much as possible, as high it goes up from there. And an N of 40 at least gives us some some ability to do statistics on it, but it's still a very small study. So one with an N of 40 showed positive results when treating migraines, which is interesting. Not one of the things we would think about from a Chinese medical perspective using this herb for, but there you go, might be helpful in migraines. The other study with an N of 47, again, a little bit more people, but still quite a small study, used a formula including Neobongsa to treat facial paralysis. And generally, I got to be honest with you, I don't include studies that have formulas, that are in formulas, because one of the issue with looking at an individual herb in a formula is you don't know if that individual herb is actually part of the reason why the formula was successful, or is it other herbs in the individual herbs in the formula, or is it some sort of synergism between the herbs in the formula? So I'm not a big fan of including, when we're talking about individual herbs, including formula as a thing. But there was only one other clinical study, so I threw it in there. Interesting, again, facial paralysis, and kind of see if there's like some phlegm in the face, which we talked about. This could be very useful for. I don't know if I would think about using this herb for facial paralysis in general. So Lee and their team says Neobongsa. So this is another study. Says Neobongsa in various extracts and drug formulations showed that it has antioxidant, antimicrobial, hypoglycemic, so it lowers blood sugar levels, lipid lowering, anti-inflammatory, analgesic, so it helps with pain, antiviral, and anti-tumor activity. So interesting activities on this. Again, when we start looking at these sort of pharmacological effects of an herb, I'm not discounting that it has all those effects, but a lot of those effects were probably done from studies that were in vitro in glass. So like, to show that it's antioxidant, you put some extract in with some oxidants and see that it breaks them down. So then it's antioxidant, but that doesn't mean it's antioxidant in humans. So I'm a little hesitant with these sort of pharmacological effects, though there is some evidence to support. I'm not discounting them. I'm just saying clinically it may not be as useful as it sounds. Drug-herb interactions. Neobangsa lowers plasma glucose levels and may attenuate anti-diabetic medications causing hypoglycemia. This is from Chen, of Chen and Chen. It's only one of the Chens. And it's level D evidence. It was opinion, so not based on a clinical study. So again, take it with a grain of salt. I don't think I'd put a lot into this lowering of plasma glucose levels. I wouldn't be worried about this necessarily. A literature search did not find interactions between neobangsa and various cytochrome P450 isozymes or P-glycoproteins, or P-glycoprotein. Those are two major targets that we look at for raising the risk of drug-herb interactions. Our great book, the American Herbal Products Association's Botanical Safety Handbook, which looks at safety of herbs, does have this herb in there and puts this herb in interaction class A, herbs for which no clinically relevant interactions are expected. So that's its best interaction class for the least likely to have an interaction, a drug-herb interaction. So it doesn't look like this is a strong candidate for drug-herb interactions in general. Concerns. There are some concerns about this herb. So Bensky and his team note several concerns with neobangsa. Under the heading of cautions and contraindications, they say, use with caution in cases of Qi deficiency, diarrhea, or in the absence of excessive heat, as it is both cold and slippery. So again, this will help constipation. So using it in the case of diarrhea is probably not a great idea. Under the heading of traditional contraindications, they quote harm and benefit in the materia medica of the Bensao Hai Li, written in 1893. Its nature is cold and slippery, and is best suited for pox patients with constipation and heat in the blood. If the patient is Qi deficient, white complexioned, with loose stools or diarrhea, it is definitely forbidden. So don't use it in those cases. Under the heading of toxicity, they say allergic reactions have been reported, including discomfort in the chest, rapid breathing, sensation of obstruction in the throat, dizziness, flushing of the face, dizziness again, vomiting, papular rashes, intense itching, and low blood pressure. So that's Bensky's concerns of various stripes. Chen also have similar concerns. And they say, due to its cold nature, neobangsa should be used only for patients with heat or excess syndromes. Use of neobangsa is contraindicated in patients with spleen Qi deficiency with loose stools. So there you go. Very similar. Spleen Qi deficiency with loose stools seems to be pretty universally contraindicated. We want to be very cautious with that and using this herb. Brandon Wiseman, our third textbook, warns neobangsa lubricates the intestines and can cause mild diarrhea. Used with care in patients with sloppy stool due to Qi vacuity or vacuity cold. So again, very similar. Again, diarrhea in general should be very cautious about. I do like this sloppy stool. I don't know what that means entirely, but if my patients say they have sloppy stool, I'm not giving them neobangsa. So that's Brandon Wiseman. And then finally, the American Herbal Product Association's Botanical Safety Handbook puts this herb in safety class 1. So that's their best safety class, are herbs that can be safely consumed when used appropriately. So they don't have, and again, I think that's probably correct. I think this herb is pretty darn safe so long as we're using it appropriately. And of course, because it treats constipation, using it in patients who have diarrhea is not using it properly. And so I would certainly be of concern if we were doing that. So that would be my big takeaway from all the concerns here. And I think that is pretty much, oh, no, we have some more concerns. Hang on. The PDR for herbal medicines. I was almost going to cut it off too soon. The PDR for herbal medicines says neobangsa should not be used during the first trimester of pregnancy. Under the heading of precautions and adverse reactions, the authors say no health hazards or side effects are known in conjunction with the proper administration of designated therapeutic dosages. There is a slight potential for sensitization via skin contact with the drug. In other words, it can cause allergies, skin allergies, topical allergies potentially. So there you go. So they say not to use it during the first trimester of pregnancy. Well, they don't explain why they say that. I think from a Chinese point of view, it would not be a good idea to have a real cold herb and downward bearing to help treat constipation. That would not be a good idea to have during the first trimester of pregnancy. So I think we can probably agree with that from a Chinese medical point of view. They don't say anything about diarrhea or constipation here, but there you go. So that's the PDR for herbal medicines. And that is when we can start to wrap this up a little bit. And let's talk about our summary of today. So today, we started with our discussion of some basic botany. So that was interesting to me. I always felt like botany is sort of a basis of herbology, and I just don't feel like it's covered well. So it was nice to cover the bases there. So we did that with botany. Then we looked at another single Chinese herb, neobangsa, Arctii Fructus, or great burdock fruit. This is an interesting, cool, acrid herb that releases the exterior that can also be used to treat skin rashes and sore throats. As usual, we explored all the intricacies of this herb as well as an explanation of its category. It is, I wouldn't say this is an incredibly commonly used Chinese herb, but it's certainly, I would probably put it mid-tier herb. It's like, it's definitely something that we will use when appropriate. It's not necessarily the first thing we think about when it comes to treating a wind heat condition, but it is, maybe the second or third thing we think about as we're treating a wind heat condition. So it's a good herb, and it's not a rarely used Chinese herb. It's a very useful herb for a lot of different conditions. And I think, the big thing there is that it's it's either very cool or cold. And so when there's a lot of heat, this is going to be a very useful herb in an external condition. So with that, we conclude another exploration of a very useful Chinese herb. In our next episode, we will be looking at another Chinese herbal formula. This case, we're going to be looking at ge gun tang, or kudzu decoction. Ge gun tang, or kudzu decoction. This is from the formulas that release exterior when cold subcategory of the formulas that release the exterior category. So we're covering a lot of these exterior herbs and formulas all in a relative clump here, but that's useful. They're very important herbs and herb formulas. This Gugentang is a useful formula for treating colds with a stiff neck and upper back. So if you have any of that, when sometimes you get cold in your neck and your back are just really, this is a good formula for that. As always, we will do our deep dive into this herb and look at its traditional uses and its preparation, interactions, and cautions. And as usual, we will be adding something a little different. It's going to be another interesting vacation into the exciting continent of herbs. Please join us. And I would like to spend a moment here thanking you for listening today. And if you like this podcast, could you do us a huge favor? Could you subscribe in your favorite podcast app? That really helps us a lot as we move forward and try to grow the podcast. And I thank you for even considering subscribing. And you can get this course, as well as many others, as continuing education units and National Certification Commission of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine professional development activities at www.integrativemedicinecouncil.org. That's Integrative Medicine Council, COUNCIL.org. And don't forget that 20% off with the code SH20OFF. Spurbs Herbs, SH20 off. You can always get in touch with me at drgreg@spurbsherbs.com or at our website, www.spurbsherbs.com. And with that, we have our generous bibliography as usual. And thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Spurbs Herbs.
The proceeding was presented by Dr. Greg Sperber. We would like to thank Janelle for all her support and everybody else who contributed to this program.
Janelle.
Timothy Dobbins.
Rogers.
Campbell.